And welcome back. It's been a while, a month to be exact. Every month I rotate them off, and we're back to Zanpakuto. This Zanpakuto creation series suggestion comes to us from Hagino-san. I might be butchering the name slightly. Who asked the question, what is the Maestros? I'm assuming you mean Marvel's Maestro from Marvel. What is their Zanpakuto? So the Maestro is a very unique circumstance for this series because the Maestro is just an alternative version of the Hulk. The Maestro is a version of the Hulk that has also gained Banner's intelligence, but also a lot of the cruel aspects of both the Hulk and Banner, because Banner's not a Boy Scout. I mean, he's a good person, but he's got some darkness in him too. So I actually had a template I could go off of to create this Zanpakuto. I had the original Hulk one. Now, the original Hulk Zanpakuto, I have that video. You can go watch it. I will say, I don't always get a chance to rewatch my videos, but I do need to work on my speech patterns a little bit. There is a lot of pauses and uhs and lip smacking in there. And I have had people tell me, dude, you need to work on, your presentation scripts and all that. With these videos, I have the information. I don't necessarily have a script I'm reading off of. With the what ifs, I definitely try to do a script these days for those. So, but I understand what people are saying when they say that, because I heard that. I'm like, yeah, even I'm like, I probably should be working a bit better on that. So I'm going to try to make a better effort to work on the cadence of how I speak. But like I said, I already had a template for the Hulk or Maestro Zanpakuto because I have the Hulk. And whether we like it or not, this is still the Hulk. It's just an altered version of the Hulk. Which made me wonder, do I even bother doing this one? Because I already have the Hulk and what the Hulk's Zanpakuto, how it's made, modeled, and based off of. Ultimately, though, I think there is enough differences because you do have someone who has evolved past a certain point of the Hulk. They are a different version of the Hulk. So maybe the core of their soul still has the general idea of the Hulk in terms of what a Zanpakuto does. But those changes have fundamentally altered what it does. So just to recap, the original Zanpakuto for the Hulk is a melee-ish kilo type-ish type ability. It's a Kodachi in its standard form. The other release, Slam or Burn and Slam. I think it was Slam or Burn with Rage. I think it was Burn with Rage. Its name was Akuma no Okari, or Devil's Rage. Its Bankai was also, I actually like the idea of it still being the same name, Akuma no Okari, but Fury of the Devil's Rage. Basically the same Zanpakuto name with a different meaning. Now, I don't know for 100% certainty if that is the same thing here. Again, I tend to use Google Translate. I'm not someone who actually knows Japanese enough to, I know like the basic words, how to count and all that, who could translate and create names like that. Also, I'm not a prolific enough YouTuber to hire someone out for that. So yeah, y'all unfortunately have to deal with the Google Translate when you deal with this series. Its spirit was that of Banner, because when Hulk is in control, Banner's kind of put on the back foot. Basically what the form the Zanpakuto took was actually that of a giant kanobo or cannonbo, a giant Japanese war club. But what it ultimately did was it fed off the Hulk's rage, increased the angrier it got, the stronger it got, the more its form changed, maybe it gained extra abilities, so forth and so on. Its Bankai ultimately started off as a pair of like knuckle bracers that ultimately would envelop like a suit of armor, aka the Hulk is encompassed by his own rage. So that was the general gist of the original Hulk Zanpakuto. I knew that the Maestro still had to focus on rage. That is the core of the Hulk. So, again, though, it's still going to be predominantly a melee type, but it's a melee keto type. More so than the original was. The original didn't really have any keto abilities, but it did feed off of rage, which you could make an argument is a keto ability. I don't personally see it as a keto ability. I just see it as a passive ability of the Zanpakuto. It has a lot of melee type of abilities going with it, and it's just like a sheer power tool, but not a keto type. This version is more of a keto type. It would still be a Kodachi. Now this is where the change. That's about it. This is where the changes come in, because its release command is actually "Give me your rage," Devil's Embrace, or Akuma Dekishimaru. And its Bankai's name is Devil's Rage Communion, or, and I might be butchering this, but I'll do my best, Akuma no Ikari no Majiwari. Its spirit would still be Banner, but it would be, because Maestro is an older version of Banner / Hulk, it'd be an old man Banner who's in there instead. Now, it still would take the Kanobo's form. It would still be, or Kanabo. It'd still be the Kanabo form. But it would be a thinner version, almost to the point where you'd mistake it for like a sword, because it's still wrapped in like the metal studs. But it's a little thicker than that. It's still very large. He's a large guy, so it's still going to be very big. Bigger than the Kodachi itself. And it still has the general ability of feeding off a rage. But because you're dealing with the intelligence of Banner, and Banner kind of mixed in there a bit more with this version, what I think you get instead is something that isn't feeding off solely the Hulk's rage. In fact, I actually think the Hulk's rage, or Maestro's rage, is not a big factor here, because Maestro is a form of the Hulk that kind of is able to just stay in his Hulk form without needing to be as angry. So while he could still passively give up his anger, it's not feeding solely off of his anger. And I'd even call that the mandatory keep me activated and give me powers ability. Or let me rephrase that sentence. The Maestro's rage, whatever it's giving the sword, or Kanabo at this point, the Shikai, is the bare minimum keep me powered feeding. What it's actually doing is feeding off rage from the environment. Now, they might not think that's very effective. And to agree, you're right. It's not very effective. If you got an opponent who's not very angry, or you got a mass of people who's not angry, then this Zanpakuto really isn't going to be doing much. And that it would be an inherent weakness of the Zanpakuto. You need individuals, opponents who are fueled by rage around you. But there's two things. One, if you get a lot of people in mass, it's just going to continually be fueling rage. It's not taking away their rage, by the way. This isn't something that's feeding off of emotion and just robbing it. No, it's feeding off the emotion, but it is also still just constantly feeding off the anger they're feeling. But because we know Zanpakuto can evolve their abilities with more training, there's also the concept of spiritual anger. What I mean by that is the concept of things like the world is a living thing. It isn't, or technically speaking, it's not sentient as far as we know, but it's the plants, the trees, all that. And if we go into like Bleach, there's spiritualism, though their worlds could be sentient, or worlds could have a soul, a pulse, and therefore feeding off or you can just expand your radius with the ability and feed off the rage of all the populace of the world, the animals, everything that is angry, the spirits, the planet itself, everything that's happened to the planet, what we've done to it. Theoretically, you could be feeding up all that, and that could ultimately well eclipse the amount of anger that, say, the Hulk's initial Zanpakuto could do. But that is all, dependent on how much you train with the Zanpakuto. Inherently, the Hulk's is going to have the better rage fuel ability, because it's just feeding solely off the Hulk's rage, and the Hulk's rage, if we're going Savage Hulk, is just, or World War Hulk, is far greater than what the Maestro is putting out. But the Maestro would have an extra ability with the Kanabo, I believe. I believe that this would be able to also envelop itself in energy, like the rage energy, let's call it the rage energy. The Ryatsu rage energy that he's been collecting, and use it for energy-based attacks, be it either like just a blast straight from the stick itself, the club, or something more akin to like surrounding the club in energy and do like a big shockwave energy strike. The Bankai of this, however, is actually, it would be very different. It would not be an encompass yourself with your concept kind of thing. It would actually still take the form of a weapon. The Kanabo would lengthen, grow larger, and then wrap around the Maestro to form basically a whip. And a whip based off a Kanabo, which is actually it's actually kind of a pretty interesting idea when you think about it. Design a weapon based off another weapon. I mean, you got gun, swords, and all that, but a whip based off a Kanabo is actually not a bad concept at all. That's actually, and really, if you're thinking about like kind of, because my thought process is Renji's Zabimaru, how it's designed. Think that longer, wrapped around almost like a belt around the Maestro's chest. He's still got the handle for it. It's got the segments, but it's a cannon bow. It's still the cannon bow, and it's probably more spikier. It's more threatening, and it keeps all of the abilities it had Shikai. It's feeding off of collective rage. It's got all the abilities he had previously amped, but now it also has the range capabilities. It has the ability to use more unique techniques. It could even theoretically have like a torturing, burn your soul with pure rage ability. I think that would be like the trump card ability of this Bankai, where it literally extends, and it could probably even extend further depending on how much rage it's feeding off of. The more rage it gets, the longer it can go. But eventually wraps around someone, bleeding into, like stabbing at him with the spikes on the kanabo, or the whip in this case, the Bankai. And it would ultimately like start squeeze, and then he basically, maybe the Maestro says some clever line, and he activates the ability burn Akuma, how would he be? Well, Kevin would be like how Gin says kill Kamashini no Yari. It'd kind of be like that, except he would say the name of the command, and all of a sudden all that energy is pouring into the body of the opponent, and basically he's trying to just incinerate them from the inside out with just the pure power of rage. The reason I go with a whip is it's a more sophisticated weapon than the Kanobo, or Kanabo. I keep saying Kanobo, but it's a Kanabo, I believe. Is it the pronunciation? And Maestro is a more sophisticated version of the Hulk. He does have a lot of intelligence to him. Now, like I said before, the weaknesses of the Zanpakuto would inherently be that if you have not been training with it, then you're not going up against an opponent or opponents, or there's not a lot of individuals who are angry around you, well, you're going to be feeding off that low passive rage you've got, which isn't going to be as impressive here. You're not going to be able to do much with it outside of that. It's going to just still be a club, more or less. So, yeah, it's not, and that really is the inherent weakness. Obviously, we keep mentioning Ryatsu versus Ryatsu, but that's a given at this point. Any individual with stronger Ryatsu is going to overpower this Zanpakuto. That's just the way it's going to happen. So, yeah, otherwise, I think this is a kind of a cool idea and a good evolution of the Hulk Zanpakuto into the Maestro Zanpakuto. But this is just my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Later.